Hello. Um, so I recently played the new expansion for Alan Wake 2, The Lake House, and I wanted to ramble about that a little bit and just ramble about Remedy Entertainment in general. Because Remedy, the first game I played by them and the first game where they really made a name for themselves was Max Payne, which I believe came out in 2001. I played it when I was pretty young at a pretty formative time for my brain, and I was really blown away by it. It was like this was at the time there was a debate about whether video games even were art or if they were just entertainment. And I hope that's resolved now because they're clearly art. It's just another storytelling medium, and I think a very effective one. But at the time, I can understand a little bit of why there was a debate because to me, they were just entertainment. I mean, the kind of games I played, shooters like Doom and Dark Forces and Heretic and Outlaws, things like that. Even the stuff I would play, on the N64, the platformers, and on PlayStation, like Crash Bandicoot and stuff, and fucking Mario and all that shit, Super Smash Brothers. You're not playing these games for like a complex and intricate storyline. You're playing them for fun. It's just fun. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's still tons of games that are just for fun, you know but I had really never experienced anything like Max Payne. And at the time, though, I was young. I was the weird kind of 10-year-old who was like, or whatever I was, 12, 13. I was the kind of weird little kid who was like already really into film noir. I've always really liked noir because not only is it like really cool aesthetically, but there is like this touch of absurdity to it. Like it's a little ridiculous and a little heightened, and it's super cool. And that's just a really intriguing combination of things. I love the aesthetic. I love the heightened drama of it. I love that it has its own kind of internal logic, like the way those stories play out and their lingo and their tropes. It's fun. And Max Payne is made by people who know noir really well, who know the hallmarks of it, who know how to write noir prose. And that's what blew me away about it. Was not so much the gameplay, which was really fun. I don't want to discount that. The gameplay in that was wonderful. It at the time it kind of got made fun of for doing that divey slow motion bullet time thing because it came out pretty soon after The Matrix. But, I will have it should be noted that this game was in development before The Matrix came out. So, what I'm saying is that Remedy invented bullet time. I'm not saying that. I think John Woo maybe invented bullet time. I don't know. Who knows? The point is, I had never really considered video games to be a storytelling medium before Max Payne. And all of a sudden now I'm playing this game where the gameplay is really engaging, but I care and I'm sucked into this world because I care about the narrative and I care about the characters and it like engaged my brain in a way that no other game had. You have these moments with art, right, where you kind of increase your comprehension not only of what you like in art, what you're looking for in art, but even like what art can be, you know? And maybe that happened to you when you heard a certain band, when you heard the Beatles for the first time or something, and you realized the potential of rock music, or, maybe like for me, when I read A Heartbreaking Work of Staggering Genius by Dave Eggers, it really expanded, like to me what literature could be, what you know, what a book could be, what a story could be. There were all of these new avenues I could go down that I had never even considered, and this game is this is what did it to me for video games, that now all of a sudden there was this whole world of potential, this whole world of, storytelling, where I could get emotionally involved in a game, like a movie, or like a great piece of literature. And it was the first time I'd ever experienced that, and it made a huge impression on me. And so, in a way, my love of narrative based games really developed there, and I'm still that way. Like, if a game has an amazing story, particularly if you have some agency in it and you can make some choices and kind of role play your character, I'll put up with some shitty gameplay if the story is good. That's really what I put the emphasis on. And I'm that way with music too, and I'm trying to do better about that. But my mind just goes to the words, to the narrative, to the character that's being expressed. And I look for that in games now too. Sometimes you just want to play like a really fun, mindless shooty game or something. But if you have a great narrative that hooks me, that's really all you need to have. Like, I am a huge fan of those Frogwares Sherlock Holmes games, and like these, kind of cheap Inspector Poirot games and stuff like that. And they're not especially good games from a gameplay perspective, but I get involved in the stories, and I get involved in being a detective. I kind of just want to be a detective, and Max Payne is a detective. He's like a rogue cop who's trying to figure out why his wife and child got killed. Which happens at the beginning of the game. It's really fucked up and sad. And at the time, I was maybe, I guess too young to play this game, some people would say. But I turned out okay. It was fine. But I do remember busting it out on Christmas Day and playing it. And my dad would, he wouldn't watch me. He wouldn't like play the video games himself, but he would watch me play them because he was like interested in them. And I remember my stepmom came in and said, like, "What is this? What is this game?" And I remember my dad telling her, that I was shooting gangsters in a brothel because that's what I was doing. And it was a weird moment where I was just like, "That is what I'm doing, isn't it?" But I'm not one of those people who believes that, violent media seeps into your brain and makes you a violent person. I mean, anything can make you a violent person. In fact, usually the media these people use to justify their crimes is not inherently violent. But, that was a weird digression there. What I'm trying to say is it made a huge impact on me, and I loved the storytelling, and that goes just as much for the sequel for Max Payne 2, if not even more. The storytelling in that game is wonderful. And I remember when Max Payne 3 came out, they really doubled down on the shooty stuff, made the shooty stuff really fun. But the story just wasn't connecting as much for me. And I didn't care anymore. I was like, this is pretty fun, like, mechanically, but I can't care as much because that voice isn't there. The Sam Lake, I don't want to give Sam Lake all the credit. Sam Lake being the kind of like the creative director at Remedy, like the main creative vision of the company. So I don't want to give him all the credit. He clearly has like a team of writers realizing this stuff to an extent, but it's been proven time and time again that Sam Lake is a really good writer. Like, if Sam Lake wrote a novel, I would read it. And he's a wonderful writer, and he treats video games like literature. And there are some other people who do that now. Telltale Games with their Walking Dead series, they got famous for treating it seriously with, emotional intelligence and shit. And, that's true of the Quantic Dream games by David Cage, even if he's not the most sane of writers. He still has like that vision that he executes that's like right from his brain to the screen. So Sam Lake is like that, except Sam Lake is just a super talented, super creative person, and I fell in love with that universe and with that writing style. And there was a long period where I was kind of disengaged from Remedy. I wasn't able to play Alan Wake when it came out, and I think just because it was like between, it was like console generation. I forget the reason why. It was like I was either broke, or it was like on the previous console generation, or like both, or maybe it was when I was at college and I didn't have a video game device. I don't remember, but I didn't play it for some reason, even though I wanted to play it. And then, excuse me, and then what the hell is that game called? Quantum Break. Yeah, I still have never played Quantum Break. Because it was an Xbox exclusive, and at the time I was loyal to PlayStation. I only switched because, Bethesda went to Xbox, so I had to go to Xbox. But yeah, at the time I couldn't play that game because it was an Xbox exclusive. And I finally, in the wake of Alan Wake 2 coming out, which I really wanted to play, I went back and played the first one. By this point, I had also played Control, which I absolutely loved. And Control just brought me right back to what I loved about the Max Payne games. Because, a lot of times, you play a Fallout game and there are all these audio logs and all these files on the computer. And you're reading them at first and engaging with the world building, but then after a while, you're just like, well, let me just kind of skim through this really fast because I want to get back to, exploring and stuff. But in these games, they're so well written and so well realized and so creative, and these worlds are so interesting that I'm just like hunting for like every tiny scrap of lore that I can find. And there's a lot of it in these games. Like, I remember one of the things that really made an impact on me from the Max Payne games was they would have these TV shows. Like, they would have little TV episodes inside the game, and you would have to find them. They would like be playing on like television sets. And they did something similar to that in Alan Wake 2 to like wonderful effect. That was like one of my favorite parts of the game. But I just remember thinking, this was the first game I had played where they put so much work and care and thought into world building, into the stuff that had nothing to do with gameplay, that had nothing to do with the main plot, really, besides drawing some parallels and stuff. And they're so good at that bigger picture, of not just focusing on, what do you do, like point A to point B. It's like the world surrounding it. Their games feel huge because the universe of them is like alive. It's like breathing, and you totally buy into it, that you're experiencing this tiny little part of this huge thing that you can barely comprehend, or like not even comprehend at all. Like, there's stuff in Control where I still have no fucking idea what happened, and I love that. It's not because there aren't answers. It's because the answers are coming, or the answers are insanely complicated, or you're meant to read into things and interpret things how you see them. That's true too. David Lynch has said that he doesn't, give answers to his movies, the weird stuff in his movies. He doesn't tell you what it's supposed to mean, because what you bring to it, what you think it means, is to him just as valid as what he thinks it means. It's like, why should he ruin that for you and say, this is the way you need to view this, when you can engage with it yourself and view it the way you view it and bring your experience and your context to it. Like, I remember the Darren Aronofsky film, Mother. When I saw that, I had a way of interpreting it that I thought was interesting. I thought it was a movie about Darren Aronofsky kind of confessing that he was a terrible boyfriend and that he had made this huge, big budget, ridiculous, crazy movie about why it was a bad idea to date Darren Aronofsky, which I thought was a very interesting choice to make. But then Darren Aronofsky comes out and he's like, no, it has this like religious meaning. It's about like the dawn of man and shit. And then you go back and watch the movie with that in your head and you're like, oh, that's exactly what it's about the whole time. And that's not what it was about to me. But once you know that, once you know the actual answer, it's hard to just discount that and just be like, I don't care, I'm going to feel about it the way I feel. That's hard. So there are certain things in these games where I never want to know what they mean. I want to decide for myself. But Control started this, and Alan Wake 2 really built upon digging through these environments and finding this lore, finding these pages, finding these documents, and just building out this fascinating universe. And what Remedy's done is, they don't have the rights to most of their games at this point, or at least not a lot of, maybe half their games, because Quantum Break is owned by Microsoft, and Max Payne, is owned by Rockstar. They're the people who made Max Payne 3. And they're the people who published the first 2 Max Payne games. So instead of literally, instead of connecting all of those games with the actual characters from those games, they're creating kind of these mirror images of these characters. Like, we had kind of always suspected that all of these games were connected, Remedy fans, but it wasn't made explicit until Control, where you start seeing these references to Alan Wake. And, there had been internal references in games previous, so you're like, maybe this is just a fun little Easter egg or something. But it just gets more and more explicit and direct leading up to this DLC coming out, where Alan Wake is in the DLC, and they're just connecting it and saying, no, this is part of the same story. These two franchises, and it's a lot more than Valve connecting Half-Life to Portal by just with some company names or something. It's so in-depth and intricate and deliberate, the way these things are connected. And so they're even bringing in elements from these games they don't own. It's even, there is a character, Max Payne. I'm just going to say Max Payne is in Alan Wake 2. And he's not called Max Payne, but he is Max Payne. He's the kind of the mirror universe of this Alex Casey guy, this agent who's working the case. And I still haven't played Quantum Break. I will soon, but there's this guy in that who is played by the late Lance Reddick, who died way too young. And there's kind of a mirror universe version of him in this game too. This guy, Warlin Door. I think that's how you pronounce his first name, Warlin. Yeah. And it's cool because basically, they can't say, hey, this is Max Payne, but they can dress him the same way and have him talk the same way and have him played by the same voice actor. And it's undeniable. And, the way they get around these things and the way they bring it all together is it's so gratifying as a fan. And it doesn't feel like this thing that was retconned in, that was oh, we want to do this now, so now we have to make this continuity work. It all feels so natural. It feels like it's supposed to work that way. And I don't know how much of it was planned from the start and how much of it they just made up as they went along, but it works. It works so well. And, the like I said, Max Payne had fun gameplay along with the great story. I didn't really feel that way about Alan Wake. I felt like the story and the lore was awesome, but the gameplay kind of let it down a little bit. It wasn't super fun. And that is not an issue with Alan Wake 2, or certainly not with Control. Like they solved that problem completely. And these are really fun games to play, but more than that, they're fun to explore and to learn about these worlds, to learn about the characters in these worlds. And Remedy does something better than any other video game company, and that's blending animated material with live action material. Like there are other video game companies that try to do that with with like full motion video and stuff, but it always comes across as really hokey almost all the time. And they're able to insert this live action footage of these actors giving these really good performances into this computer generated world, and it's just so compelling. Like the same guy who plays Alan Wake plays this guy Casper Darling in Control, and it's such an amazing showcase for this actor, because you would have no idea these two characters were played by the same guy. And it's like it's a feat. It really is. And they allow, whether it's the physical actors or it's the voice actors, they allow them to show off, to really show what they can do in a way that I think is very uncommon in the video game industry. It's like Remedy, they showcase, it's like, yes, their games look really good. They have beautiful graphics. Like the city based levels in Alan Wake 2 looked absolutely incredible. We're so like full of detail. But more than that, it's exciting because it's a showcase of this really good, really high level writing and acting, and all of these people who feel like, it feels like everybody who's working on these games is like at the top of their game, like performing on this really high level where it's like, you know, there really aren't any weak points there, you know? Like maybe you have like a temporary little annoyance with some kind of gameplay thing, but it goes away fast, you know? And the good so overwhelms the mediocre, you know? And I'm not even saying the bad, because I don't think there's anything to report on that front. And this all came back, into my brain because I was playing this Lake House DLC, and it's not that long. It's maybe like 3 hours, maybe 3.5. But I was like exploring everything. I was like watching every video, reading every document, breaking into every computer and reading all the emails. And I was so like engrossed by it. Like I was like searching everywhere, making sure I could pick up like every scrap of this world, because I knew every little piece of it that I found would be so beautifully realized and so well written, and add these little interesting wrinkles to this larger narrative that's going on. So to me, if you want to talk about video games as art, because I'm sure there are still people out there who don't really think of video games as art, and I would tell those people, if you want an example of what video games can achieve solely on an artistic level, like not even gameplay related, you need to play a Remedy game. And if you haven't, then you haven't seen the full potential of games as art, of games as a storytelling device. I think with Control and with Alan Wake 2, they've reached that pinnacle, and they've moved the industry forward and increased the depth and the quality of storytelling that's possible and maybe even to be expected, from games in the future. It's crazy good shit. That's what I'm trying to say. It's real good. So I recommend it. So bye.